we're back. And we're back. And we're getting ready to start our conversation for this morning with attorney Audrey Matura. I gotta say, she's been one of the biggest advocates or most vocal advocates for what people call a shutdown, but what we're calling the state of emergency here in Belize.
Exactly.
Good morning, Audrey.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
I know I have limited time, so I don't know what all you all want to ask about, but I want to start by saying
Go
something. Yes, I've been one of the vocal advocates,
Yes.
and I know by doing my live FB shows, I would say 99% of the people who came on were for it. I had a viewing of over like almost 50,000 people came on to view what I had to say and explain legally what's a state of emergency. I want people to know that the reason I wanted a state of emergency was because under a state of emergency, the government then takes control and is able to do take certain measures. But it's not just measures that you give up certain rights or you take control as to who can or can't be on the streets or not. Because it means also that the government then cannot only take away these rights from you, but the measures of relief they must also take is for them to be able to make sure that the people who will suffer the most are taken care of.
Yeah.
So based on what I've heard so far, I mean, it's not that I want to be critical, but it's a start. It's a good start. But there's a lot of things to be ironed out, and I hope they do, and that they're not arrogant, that when they hear very good criticism, you know, logical criticism, practical criticism, they say, oh yes, you know, we can make those changes.
Yeah.
The way I'm seeing it is that clearly this will be a phased in or phased out state of emergency, in that what I'm thinking is that, to me, they started too wide a base of who could be out there. So there's two ways you can do it, in my opinion. You start with a wide base, and as the situation changes, you go narrowing it down, because at some point it should only be food and medicine. Right now it's food, medicine, construction, Bolido, and that kind of thing.
Well,
although I hear Bolido
I'm
has
glad
been
that
corrected.
you gave me the opportunity here. We do have a latest update. We have confirmed with the Commissioner of Police that, in fact, Bolido will not be considered an essential need that you can use as an excuse to go out and purchase. It was very, you know, I think people misinterpreted my line of questioning yesterday when I was asking about tacos vendors versus Bolido. It's not that I think that we should have people on the street selling food. It's just how we prioritize things.
Yes.
And so I think it was a major concern. Up to yesterday, it was being said that people would have been allowed. I believe the Attorney General explained it in one show, that if the grocery store offers it and people are going to be at the grocery store, they can still purchase it. But it still was concerning, especially seeing what we saw in San Pedro with lines for people going out for Bolido.
It doesn't make sense.
But as I said this morning, in fact, just a few minutes ago, we got confirmation from the Commissioner of Police that you will not be allowed. It'll be suspended during the state of emergency.
Yes, and so the other way I think it could have been done is that you start very stringent, and as the situation gets better, you start loosening and say, okay, these ones can. But I will applaud the government to at least take the step, because they were saying they were going to wait until community transmission. Community transmission means that so many people in the population has it, they're transmitting it to each other. That didn't make sense to me. I believe, my view is that they have missed 4 opportunities to do it the right way. The first opportunity was the minute you knew our neighbors had it, you had to shut down the border. They took long to shut down the border. The second opportunity was that when they finally shut down the border, they had the opportunity to quickly say, quarantine everybody coming in. We got to make sure that it's not imported in. And if it is, we contain it immediately. Patient zero is the perfect example where we failed to do that. Then there was a third opportunity to get it right, which I say, the minute we knew we had one patient, we should have shut down then, so that we don't wait until it spreads. Luckily, we haven't had the spread other countries have had. So that was the third opportunity. This is the fourth one. And I put this one as the fourth one because although I say it's good that they have had the foresight to finally call a state of emergency, they can't be so lax. But I will give them a slack simply because the truth is it's something new. And I'm hoping they have a lot of heads together, and as we work it out, the commissioner who will be on the ground with his people need to give good feedback on, and the authorities then need to say, you know, commissioner needs to say, well, you know, AG or Prime Minister, these things are not working for these reasons, this is where we are having problem. and we tweak it as we go along. I'm hoping that's the level of maturity we'll be having. I don't know everything, but from my lens and my little perch, I will say what I think can be improved, and I hope they don't take it in a bad light.
Yeah, so that was going to actually be my first question, because now that we are in the situation where the state of emergency has been declared and the regulations have been passed, what is kind of your reaction when you read on a reading of the legislation? What was your reaction? Do you think that it goes too far? Do you think it doesn't go far enough? What's your initial view?
I found a lot of contradiction, but one was corrected already, because, for example, like Section 5 says that you can go out to purchase essential needs. You can go to attend medical and veterinary attention, emergencies, all the essential workers and so. But Bolido would not have fit in that, you know, not to over talk about the Bolido situation. So you have to look at what the principles were. The principles that I get from this SI is that the purpose of preventing, controlling, containing, and suppressing the spread. How do you prevent, control, contain, and suppress the spread? By limiting movement. And so I think right now the movement allowed is too wide, because now I'll go to Section 8. And Section 8 right here says, again, for the purpose of preventing, controlling, containing, and suppressing the spread, what are you able to do? They put periods of time when you're able to open. Between 5 a.m. and 7 p.m., you could have gas stations, fuel depots, LPG suppliers. That makes sense. We run on fuel. And those entities now have to put in measures that will protect their employees. And it doesn't mean that they abuse the employees, and it doesn't mean that they have to have full-blown staff, because they still have to practice social distancing. So this is when I would recommend to employers of that nature, have a rotation process. So if you had 20 staff, instead of them all 20 being there for 8 hours or 10 hours, divide them 5 so much hours, 5 the other hours, 5, and continue like that.
So the chamber has been offering some information along those lines. That they're calling it the business continuity planning, in allowing for businesses to keep on going and looking at how to manage the staff over the course of the pandemic. And that's one of the suggestions. But before we get to all of that, one of the things I wanted to look at was a state of emergency is something that is new to us. We've only seen it in terms of when they have taken up people who've been associated with gangs. That's perhaps the most recent example. We saw in San Pedro, sometimes after a natural disaster, there may be a state of emergency. People are accustomed to hearing of things like martial law. So we hear that, but this is really interesting, because there is what is the typical classification of essential workers, and then the extension of, or the inclusion of people who were non-essential before, but now essential for this pandemic.
They're very wisely, they put it differently, you know, because if you look at what they did, they created a category essential. When you go to the schedule, it said essential. And then they said the government departments would be open, but somewhere in between Section 8 and 9, they said these can be open. So they didn't call them essential. But in the mind of the average person, only essential services should be out. So that I would say they're not essential, but because they're allowed to be open, they are viewed as essential. Because under essential, we actually have an essential act, Essential Services Act. You know, and if you look at it, many of these would not qualify. So I could understand why you would do that, because you want some semblance of the economy and the country keep rolling. You don't want a full halt. I could understand that. But I still think there are areas to be tweaked, because I was going through the list, right? Public transportation providers, I still think that the quarantine legislation that says only 10 people, but yet the bus can carry the full capacity, is contradictory. It sends mixed messages, and then it goes against the premise of what you wanted to say, because the premise, as I understand it, is social distancing, small gatherings. So you can't with one hand say, this is 10 people here, we can only have 10 people in the studio, but when I go on the bus, I'm sitting next to everybody else. It's contradictory, and it goes against what you want to do to be able to get remedies. Then you have bakeries and tortilla factories. I expect those to be open, because those are not essential services in the strict sense of the law. But these are necessities. So I would have said necessary services or necessities, right? Agriculture and aquaculture, I could see why that is being left open. Those industries then have to tweak it and put whatever they need to protect their people. Fishers, clearly the fishers were already licensed one. People said, careful when you say fishers, be sure you say license. I said, but it's understood. If you don't have a license, you can't be a fisher. It's that simple. Construction and construction sites, private and commercial. This one blew my mind. Why? Because construction is a chain of services you need. So people texting me and say, so does that mean a plumber and electrician can be working?
We've gotten those questions
and I say to them, let me tell you, let's be logical.
Yeah.
It's true the law doesn't say everything. But just an electrician and plumber working as they wish? No. But are they at a construction site? I have to say yes, because how will the construction continue when you need everybody? The electrician needs to be there to pull the pipes and all the wirings and so on, and the plumber needs to be there to put the PVC pipes, you know? So I would say plumbers and construction workers at the site of a construction.
That's why your legal insight is important, because I think that one of the things that with the classifications that are provided for, there are some gray areas. I've heard some stores say, well, you know, I think I classify as
they want to classify.
Food, so I'll open, or, you know, what makes a restaurant
I want to
versus
some
a
of
food
those.
vendors. So, I mean, there are little things
Especially
like
food
that.
vending.
Yeah.
I want to address those because I get a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So
let's start with your primary ask questions, because people want to
Okay,
understand
so my
who
primary
can
ask
move
questions.
today.
The port is open. The borders is open. Who can be there? I say to them,
The
the
port?
border is open and the port is open for trade.
Yes.
I had a custom worker contact me and say, I don't see my name listed, my category listed there. I said, look, it's not listed there, but it has to be included.
Because they
the
say
goods,
cargoes
the
are-
goods can't go a step further without the
Customs,
broker.
yeah.
So if the authorities come and shut you down, then there's a problem. But I say to people like that, I say, do your social distancing, do as much as you could from your home, and only go out when you really have to go out. So in that case, I suggested to a client of mine, draft a letter for me to approve, so that if they stop your employee, they have a letter that shows that they're employed by your brokerage form, and it has the company certificate to show that it's a legitimate thing. So it's little things like that I don't want people to bog down the authorities, and the poor commissioner have to be calling one call after the other, answering.
Yeah.
We have to find a way to get common sense out,
Yeah.
right?
But there's also a discretionary power, with the police.
That was going to be my big question. I mean, I think as a general reaction I had to the act, and I suppose it's always something that I think about when you're reading new legislation, is the enforceability of it. And if you have a section that's talking about you're allowed to go out of your house talking for essential needs, where, if I'm not mistaken, essential needs is not defined in the act.
No.
How is it then that it's going to be something in the discretion of the police officer to stop you? And
I think there's some discretion.
and if they say, and are they going to say, if they do stop you and you say, well, I'm leaving my house for X, Y, and Z, are they going to be able to say, that's
Is
not
that-
essential in my view?
Yeah.
Or
Or
how
are
do
they
we-
going to follow you to make sure that that's what
Exactly.
you're doing? Like,
Yeah.
officer, I had to go buy one pack of bread. You sure you to go buy a pack of bread?
Yeah,
Yes,
see.
officer, I'm pack of bread at the go. And they will follow you to see
Yeah,
you
so
buying a
that-
pack
so
of bread.
That was my reaction, so I was wondering what were your thoughts were about
Yes,
the
there is some
enforceability.
discretion. There is some discretion, and I hope the police officers use that discretion wisely. I would strongly suggest that you don't just lock up people. Give them a first warning. You know, talk
Yeah.
to them. Some people really don't know what we know.
Yeah.
This hasn't been
That's right.
greatly publicized. I was shocked the amount of questions I've been getting.
Yeah.
So the next question I get, tacos vendors, street vendors, do we qualify as restaurant? The answer is no. Because the law specifically says establishments, and establishments is where you're in a private property, you have a trade license, you do all of that. Vendors have a
Peddler's
ambulatory permit and food handling stuff. So one lady is very smart, she asked me this morning, because people have been texting me and asking me, you know. So I've been giving a lot of free advice, Gavin.
Yeah.
I hope good karma comes to me, because my office is closed down. But
Because you are also, as an attorney, not an essential service.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the lady is very smart. She says, Miss, what if I make the tacos in my yard and I just make people come pick it up? I can't blame her. They can't stop you from
It's
doing
a
that.
delivery.
Another person
I'm a
said,
takeout.
my barbecue place up on the street side, whatever. And I said, Mom, that is not an essential service. It's food, yes, but it's a vending spot on the street. She said, well, I remove my barbecue grill to my yard and I want to deliver from out there. You can't stop them then. The problem they may have is that city council may come and see whether you have a trade license to have that. So try and work out those legalities. But at the same time, City Council has been shut down because I don't see they put them here as essential services. This legislation specifically states, and I must read that, and I'm thinking it's just an oversight.
Well,
it's an oversight, I'm hoping, and that they would fix it, but I gotta read what's here. Come, Audrey, let me find it quick.
I'm sure there's no intention to cut down municipal bodies or to restrict municipal bodies.
No,
but
you see, if you go by strict law, they can say. Here, look how at Schedule 2, they specifically say here that they
have a list.
National Assembly. Yes, National Assembly, where is it? The Prime Minister Office, Attorney General Ministry, the Judiciary, Human Development, Agriculture, Public Service. I'm missing it, but it's somewhere here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's under Schedule 1, Essential Services. Number 4, Cabinet members and members of the National Assembly, they should have put there also municipal governments. So I'm thinking it's an oversight because I can't see anybody telling me, Wagner, he can't come look over the city.
Or in any of the municipal,
Bernard, you can't look over your city. Or, you know, all the different mayors. So it's an oversight, and I'm hope that there is an amendment, or if there's not an amendment, it's understood that these people from the municipal governance can operate. But then that takes you to the other question. To what extent should their offices be open?
Okay, but then it goes to the larger question. That's where I wanted to actually eventually get the conversation. So I know it's kind of a reactionary thing. It's different, it's restrictive, but at the same time, we also had, as you said, many people clamoring for this.
Yes.
But we can't clamor for a state of emergency and then all of a sudden want to all be exempted to move around. And what we have to always keep at the forefront is why we're doing this, and that it's temporary.
I like that you said we can't all be saying we want it and then some clamoring not to be exempted, be exempted, right? Because I'll be very honest with both of you, my gut reaction when I read this was that this is not fair. I can see where some huge businessmen lobbied to have their sector qualified as essential and necessary. And I know some people don't like when I say what is the obvious, and clearly I'm not to insult anyone, but right now we don't have an operating opposition, which I'm not bashing the opposition for joining forces with the government. I mean, they have to work together now. So there has to be other voices of reasoning saying, look, I know that you all are doing your collective thing, but this is not making sense. And what's not making sense is that when you read that, you could see clear that there were special interest groups that lobbied. And like we say, you know, money talks and you know what walks. I won't say it on the show because it's a family show.
Thank you.
And yes, I could understand your special interest. I honestly could understand business people. But let's go back to what's the premise. The premise is to limit the movement of people. Yeah. My view is, and I hope I'm proven wrong, my view is that the earlier we lock down, the shorter the period would be. The later we lock down, the longer the period would be. Yeah. Because the longer we lock down, the more there will be infestation and you have to try and control it. But if we contain it immediately, or as we are right now at the state where we are, it would be ideal. I honestly believe, and maybe I'm being very optimistic, that if we can contain these 3 cases, or if we find any other cases, the fact that we contain them, we can prevent the spread. The problem we are seeing in other countries in Europe and now in the USA is that the leadership did not want to lock down at the right time. Yeah. And by the time they decided a month or 2 months later to lock down, the spread was too much. So I say we were 2 weeks late, but it's better a little bit late than never. So I still applaud the government, and I'm hoping.
Well, we definitely aren't too late. We're not
too late.
As we've seen, our curve hasn't started yet.
And I hope you see. And even this thing, I was talking to different statisticians and people, and I read a lot of reports. And there's this belief that you must make the curve peak, and you must go through that. Yeah. I believe contrary.
But that's an epidemiological reality.
Yeah, and it's how for them. Theory for them,
but based on experiences with other viruses,
our peak could be 3 because the peak is not the quantity in terms that it has to reach the double digits and the triple digits. The peak is whatever your population is per capita. That's how I'm seeing it. Yeah. So this could be our peak. And who says that we have to do what everybody else is doing? Who says that we have to go through the same errors they go? We are seeing, and we could do better. I literally believe that we could have closed our borders, we could have revamped our internal economy for a while, so that if we had not allowed anyone to come out, to stay in quarantine and keep them there, this Easter, the local economy could have still been booming because everybody would have been traveling internally. But we're still not a bad, we're still not at the worst place.
Science. I mean, we have to trust the science because that's what we're guided by. It's why we talk about
Yes,
laws with lawyers.
And that's why the scientists, they're telling you themselves that, you know what, it's a phenomenon still. This is what we're saying based on other patterns, but this is a novel virus. Even right now, I'm seeing on the news last night that in China there's an outbreak in another area, which we thought would not have happened. And there have been instances, at least I read one report where there was a reoccurrence in the same person, but the scientists are saying, don't take it as gazette that it will reoccur. It could have been that the person was not fully healed, and so when we do the testing, it's not a relapse, you know, stuff like that. So it's new, we are learning, but I really still think we are at a better position than we would have been otherwise. I believe it can be contained, but I have to beg the general public, please do your part.
And that's what I was
Do
going
your
to
part.
ask.
You may, and doing your part may be sharing the information with your neighbor. Because I know there are a lot of people who really don't know the information. The fact of my phone blows up all hour of the day and night and people asking basic questions, I answer it because I don't think any question is a stupid or silly question. It just shows that people, even sometimes when they read it, they're not sure, they're interpreting it, and they need that reassurance. I wish there would be a better way for us to get the dissemination of information, but for now we have to rely on you guys, that you have these discussions, that you yourself, you're informed, that you can tell people, and for people to know that if you really have a suggestion, there must be a way you can reach to someone and offer that suggestion as to some of the things we can change. If you have a gray area, I don't want to say call the poor commissioner because he will never do any work. There has to be somewhere
But
you
there
could
is
call. Is there a hotline that you all
There
know?
is a national security hotline that you can call, and I know that's out there. I don't remember it off the top of my head. But I think one of the things that we can't lose sight of is our individual responsibility. And it's like hurricane planning and evacuation. You know, when we don't move to the point of mandatory evacuation, but every time you don't move, when they say please move, you put other people's lives at risk. And that's kind of how I equate
Especially the
this.
rescuers, because now these rescuers will have to go risk their lives to go save you.
Precisely. And that's kind of where we are. This is our evacuation notice, but this time it's a stay-at-home notice. And while it will be uncomfortable and many people would want to move around, or I don't even know if they want to move around. I just think it's the thought that you can't, that you want to. But it's just temporary, and we just need to do it to get ourselves to a point. We had Dr. Figueroa earlier. He spoke of not fooling ourselves to think that we'll come out of this state of emergency with no cases. We will continue to see.
It's true.
But what it gives us is time, and it gives us critical time to be ready at the healthcare centers and to keep the transmission
And what it
as
gives
low
us
as
is
possible.
the opportunity to contain.
So maybe
And
we
if
do
people don't understand your movement, I want people to think about it like that. Think about my jacket being the virus, and everywhere I go, I take it. This jacket cannot go anywhere by itself. It needs human to move. So each time a human being moves, it moves it. And you have to remember there's two risks. There's the risk that you're a very sociable person and you're all over the place and you have it and you're asymptomatic, so you don't know how much you're spreading it. And there's also the risk that you may not have it, but every time you move, you come in contact with someone who can give you it. I was reading what's happening in Switzerland and Netherlands, which is they've done different. What they did, they isolated all their vulnerable people, the elderly, the sickly, and so, and they allowed the healthy population to just continue life as normal, preparing their health system, knowing that those people, some will get sick, but they will be able to treat them, and calculating also based on the science, what is the likelihood of them dying. And so they took a different view, because they're saying we want the herd immunity. That means it will come within our population, they will become hopefully resistant or immune, and we will continue our population. But why can't they do that? They can do that because if 25% of their population gets ill, not die, they have the health services. We're seeing what's happening in New York.
And they also have a different level of discipline too.
Yes. So they took a different approach, and that's why I'm saying Belize didn't have to wait to be blown out like the other countries. We took a different approach. I really think we are taking a different approach in that we locked down when we had only 3 cases, confirmed cases, not severe, none of them needing hospitalization.
No fatalities.
No fatalities.
We've moved to mandatory quarantine, which is also, I think, a comforting fact, because we had a good faith practice in place that
And that's not our nature or
was
culture,
perhaps
right, Gabby?
too high expectation of our people, which is unfortunate because I can't imagine anyone coming back from New York, especially seeing what's happening there and, you know, welcoming others into my home or going to someone's
It's unconscionable.
It's so irresponsible.
Yeah, it's unconscionable.
And so that's where we're at the point where they're at mandatory quarantine. So it's a bit more positive. I don't know what's happening with illegal border crossings. I'm hoping that's under control because let's look at El Salvador, and I think we know that you could lock everything down. Now, you can imagine if we'd ever said Belizeans were not allowed to return home as El Salvador did. They still got a case. They're at 39 now. So it's not that you can completely
But you see what's happening
free yourself of getting the virus.
They say the social network that was supposed to provide relief is not reaching so many people. But their crisis is because of their overpopulation or their large population. We don't have to reach that state. So one of the other asked questions that I get is, how do we get the relief? And there's a list of the relief. Go to the covid.com site.
COVID19.bz, yeah.
But I want to tell people this. One, yes, there's relief. But don't expect it to just come overnight. It takes a process. And so I know it's difficult, but if you try and access it and you don't get it immediately, don't get agitated and upset. I really believe that our leaders are trying their best to make it accessible, but there's a little process. Two, when you go through the list, you will see if you qualify or you don't qualify. Some people may not qualify on the list, but in real life need it. Find a way to access either your area representative or someone or social department, or find a way to access someone. Don't make don't go and attack without trying first to go and get answers somewhere.
And there's an application form, and they say that it'll be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. So if you go to covid19.bz, you can download the application form, and even if maybe you don't fit exactly the criteria, I would still encourage you to apply.
I would still try. But the problem we're going to have is the third one, which is that not everybody has access to this electronic technology. And sometimes the people who need it most, the most vulnerable, some of the elderly, you know, those are the people who don't have access. So be sociable and try and help a neighbor without being stuck up in your house and not keeping your social distancing. It really comes down right now to us developing a culture quickly of responsibility, and we don't seem to just by nature have it. But I always think that circumstances force you to have to adapt and to have to make changes, and this is the time to do that. I honestly believe we could do it. If we could look collectively as a people as to what's happening in the rest of the world and realize that if they had taken certain steps, they wouldn't be there, but we get the chance to do it. Don't take it for granted. It can't be that you want to wait until we're into crisis mode, which brings me to the other issue that I wanted to address too, which is the frontline workers. I was seeing in New York where now they have come up with a policy where priority goes to testing their frontline workers because too many doctors and nurses have become infected. I don't know if any doctor has died yet, but I read quite a few stories of nurses that have died as a result. And I saw the interview, I think Channel 7 did with a Belizean American nurse there, and you're talking about how the situation looks. For some people, it looks like a war zone, and it's mentally distressing on the frontline workers. We have to be considerate. Every time we expose ourselves, and we potentially become one of the patients, we're just exposing these people. And many of us have friends and family and loved ones who are doctors and nurses, and we have to think about them. And not only doctors and nurses, the people who give the support at the hospital. So I really hope that we're going to be responsible. I know that it's hard to stay locked up. It's definitely hard for me. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to pretend and make people feel that it's the easiest thing for me. It's difficult. So I'm glad you all invited me on the show. I had an excuse to come out this morning. I know it's difficult, but let's try and find creative ways to do this. Before I went and buy those little puzzles so that at home I could do a 1,000-piece puzzle. I mean, we gotta try. Things work for different people. I know what works for a lot of people is music. Neighbors, stop being so complaining. Leave your neighbors to play music, because I'm afraid that we will kill up each other if we don't do certain things. And so I'm just hoping that our attitude towards each other changes a bit, you know. We're still not living on top of each other like you see in Europe, where the apartment is one on top of the other. Look what those people did. Every evening at a certain hour, they all came out and they sang and they did things to entertain each other. We have to develop some kind of spirit like that.
We've seen some online stuff start that's pretty catchy. We've been sharing some music that people have made, and there are a lot of DJs in Belize going live.
We didn't know we had so many DJs.
I didn't know that. But let's get back to the regulations, because I also wanted to be clear with people just how they can move, when you can move, what the
clear. How do we get this out to them? You know, it's clear.
Yeah. So we're saying very clearly to what the regulations seem to be saying: 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. Unless
Nobody
you have
should be
a
out.
government issued pass, not your work pass, not a letter from your employer. Once you have a government issued pass, those are the only people allowed on the streets. No one else.
Except, because this is another asked question that I get. Miss Audrey, what happens if my child gets sick middle of the night? I don't have a pass. Common sense people, go to the emergency room.
Yes.
You have a good reason, and I'm sure any reasonable police officer or BDF, whoever is doing the patrolling, cannot hold you back. On the contrary, they should quickly escort you.
And I think any parent would have run to the hospital anyway without even worrying about that.
So if it's an emergency, or even if you are at home and a fight ensues and you have to run out for your life, because the problem, we do expect a lot of internal tensions at homes. That's why the court is still open, because we are going to deal with domestic violence issue and occupation order issues. Don't stay. And if you feel threat to your life and limb at home, that's an emergency. Yeah. If you have to exit, exit. If you have to run to a neighbor, run. Yeah. If you have to find a hospital or a police station, run. So don't stop and think, oh, this is what matters then. Yeah. You can come out. Yeah. So, yes.
But beyond that, no one. 8 to 5, 5 a.m.
Yes, I agree with you.
Not even exercise. You wait till after 5 a.m. to do your exercise, because now we're told that you can go out and do your run or your jog. Yeah. And even if you, because I read somebody said, all of a sudden everybody wants to exercise. That's not true. People do go out.
Yes, it's true.
And they go out early, but just go after 5 a.m. So that's the critical time that you know that you're not supposed to move.
This is what I want to say to those who want to go out and exercise, which is good. I'm not saying don't, but be very careful as to other people being around, because while the illness is not airborne, it has been proven by the scientists, because we want to give facts, that if you sneeze, if I have it and I'm coughing and sneezing, the droplets can stay suspended in the air up to 8 hours, and it can travel up to 10 feet. That's why it's not airborne. Airborne means it could have spread far more, right? I mean, the likelihood of that happening is very slim. But imagine if they say 1 in a million and you happen to be the 1 in a million.
Yeah.
And then the other
that's why you want to keep your social distancing as well.
And then if you know you're one of the vulnerable people, and I call vulnerable people if you're pregnant, if you're nursing, if you're some pre-existing condition, and I say if you're 55 and over. I know some places say 60, but I think 55 for me, just to be safe, right? I soon reach that category, so maybe that's why I'm worried about that. No, a couple years more. But that is important. One of the things what I wanted to say, a lot of people call me and say, Miss Audrey, my workplace doesn't want to close down. They're trying to find a way to fit into that retailer, wholesaler part. It's so funny, some of the comments I get, you know. And this is what I'll say to all employers, whether you think you fit in the category or not. The first responsibility I think you have is to send home your vulnerable people. Yeah. Send home all your pregnant people, your elderly people, and people with pre-existing conditions.
Yes.
Right?
Can I just take a pause there? We should applaud that there are businesses who've done that without any advice. From the onset. They send home anybody with diabetes, hypertension, elderly, go home and work from home. We prefer you safe than here with us. And I think that's a commendable thing for businesses to do right here in Belize.
And since I've touched on that, I mean, there's just so much I want to talk about, and I know we'll run out of time. One of the things I get a lot of call about is employment and what they can be paid or not be paid. So I want to make it clear, because somehow some people got confused about something I said, I'm told. And so I want to make it clear on the show. There's a section 32 of our Labor Act that says, if you go to work and your employer doesn't give you any work, they still have to pay you. Or if it was a work day and they didn't show up to open the store, but you were available for work, they have to pay you. There is an exception when they don't have to pay you. And that's when one of them is an act of God. An act of God is now a pandemic. There were employers who, before the state of emergency was called, had made decisions to send home employees. and gave them pay and whatever. There's nothing wrong with that, because that state, in my interpretation of it, the minute the state of emergency was called, then we agreed that the pandemic has reached Belize, and it is what we call an act of God. Not because there's a pandemic out there, it means that automatically it's an act of God that affects us. It has to be that somehow some act was done to declare it or make it seem that that's what we accept as our norm. I'm telling people, the minute this state of emergency was called, it's official who can go to work or not. Before, it was discretionary whether you send someone home or not. If you send someone home on your own, you still had to pay them. That's my view. But now when you're sending them because there is a state of emergency, which...
Or because your business has been told to close.
Right, this is official now. The law kicks in automatically. The other thing I'm telling people is that...
So what does that mean? And let's just break this down to bare bones. If the previous regulations and the current state of emergency say I must close my business, do I or don't I have to pay my employees? And I'm not talking about a conscious thing. It's just that there's literally no revenue coming in.
By law, no, you don't have to pay your employees. Your employees can remain employed for 30 days without payment for those 30 days. Section 2 is the law that says that.
Because they were told to close
Because
down.
there is an act of God, which we call it like that. Don't make, for those very religious people, we're not saying God is punishing us. Yeah. There's what we call an act of God or force majeure, we call it too, where it's a force of nature beyond our control. And don't start arguing that it was created, that virus was created in a lab or so. Let's look at it for the legal understanding that we have.
That's unfortunate.
That happening, that section of the law kicks in. So no, employers don't have to pay you, and employees cannot demand payment. There's a state of emergency. If you had any doubt, you know the period when that operates, 30 days. That takes us to another step. Employers have asked me, so what if I just want to terminate them because I don't know how long this will take. It might be more than 30 days. The nature of my business is this, that, and the other. This is my answer. If you want to terminate them, it has to be under Section 45 of the Labor Act, which is a redundancy. It says one of the way you can declare your employees redundant is because there is an act of God, a force majeure. But if you do that, you have to contact the Labor Department, either the union if they have a union, the workers representative, or you have to call the Labor Department and say, I am going to get rid of these 5 people. There's a Section 37 that says you can fire anybody anytime with no reason. But let's be honest, this is the reason. And the reason we want it declared a redundancy is what there is case law that proves that if you get declared redundancy, you don't pay taxes on your benefits because your redundancy benefit is to pull you over until you could do better. But if they just fire you like that, then you have to pay taxes on that. And that little bit of extra goes a long way.
But see, and this is where there has been concerns with the unemployment benefits, because we had someone on the show who was talking about their attempts to hold on to their employees, and they were saying they sent them home, they're not paying them, they're just hoping until things can recover, they'll come back to work. So they're employed.
They're still employed.
But not receiving a salary.
Right.
And if
because
you are
Section
employed,
232
you
allows
don't
you that.
qualify for the unemployment benefit. So then the next question employers have, am I doing my employee a disservice by keeping them employed? And perhaps I should unemploy them, let them go due to redundancy, so they can then qualify for unemployment benefit.
Yeah.
It's a really tricky gray area.
Honestly, the way you're explaining it, strictly speaking, that's what it is. And that is why I believed, this is my honest belief, and I'm hoping the authorities will consider it. Under a state of emergency, your government, your authorities can suspend all your rights under the Constitution, can even suspend provisions of the law. And I thought that they would have made special regulations dealing with employment because of the circumstances.
Yeah.
Because when we look at our labor law as it stands, it really has a lot of loophole. It's not clear. I think it could be better. I think these are special circumstances. I honestly believe that I would have expected that they would have done certain regulations to assist. But of course, it's new for them too, and they don't know all the complaints and the circumstances. So I'm hoping that they will soon will be able to do that, or would consider it if we have to go beyond 30 days.
Yeah.
But as it stands, Marlene, the way you put it is the right way. If you're still employed, you cannot get unemployment benefit. But if you're still employed and you will hope to go back after the 30 days, but you're not getting any money. That is where the relief under the state of emergency comes. And then they may need to tweak that. Because, for example,
because someone was arguing with me that employers would be irresponsible if they don't let them go, but some people don't want to break their service.
It doesn't break your service to be employed for 30 days without a salary.
No, I mean if they let them go for the purpose of only getting the unemployment benefit. If I have an employee with me, I know I'm going to want them again, and they've put in sufficient years. I don't want to break their service. And yes, they may still be covered by Social Security, but you look at severance and all the other things.
I have had to advise several employers, and I'll tell you one thing that I find so far with everyone I've spoken to who's an employer, the ones I've dealt with. I want to applaud them, because everyone that has spoken to me says, Miss Audrey, I really don't want to fire my employees, and I know legally I don't have to pay them, but in all good conscience, I cannot send them home without money. What can I do? And my answer to that is, you can always contract. You can always make a contract that does not comply with that law, but you have to be careful with terms. For example, you can't say I'm going to give you a salary advance, because a salary advance under the law cannot be more than 1/3 of your salary. But you can give them a vacation advance, a vacation for next year's vacation or the following year's vacation, because you want to give them money. You can decide, look, I'm just going to give you a stipend, but know that that stipend, I'm not going to get it back. Or you can decide and say, you know what, you all take your vacation now, this is your vacation pay, and employees have to be willing to be open too, because what many employees don't know is that right now, your employer does not have to give you any money. So stop holding your employers at ransom and be reasonable as well. And for those employers who don't want to be reasonable, I'm going to say, you also have a conscience. Work, if these are people that have served you for 10, 20 years, or even 2 years, 3 years, I mean, you can't be unconscionable. You know, you have to give them something.
Well, if you can, that's the thing. If you've had no business for,
and for those who
a month, and if you're a small business especially.
I've dealt with small businesses that I hear that saying we really don't have the money, and they fired people. I just want those businesses to know that even though you don't have money and you fired the people and they've been with you for a while, those people can bring a case against you. They can go to the Labor Department. Unfortunately, we've never appointed the Labor Tribunal, so that's a problem. You might end up at court, and you would have to prove to the court why you didn't go to the Labor Tribunal, because it doesn't exist. I think the Labor Department right now is flooded with questions. I got every number you could call at the Labor Department, and for 2 days I called it and nobody answered me. That's a fact, and I don't care who gets mad. I can show my phone records. I could call name and numbers. And then I finally called yesterday, and I got to speak with Mr. Calvert Barber, but he tells me that he's on retirement since the 1st of February, but most graciously, he answered my questions, and we had back and forth how he sees certain things and how I see certain things. But I needed to do that as an attorney, because like some people were asking me some questions, especially for hourly workers, and I was telling them on my live feed that I did not feel I know enough, that I would check with people. So I've been calling unions and different places just to see how they're dealing with certain things. And I think what will keep the economy going is this confidence employers have that they will get back on their feet, and confidence employees have that they will be assisted. And so while we are looking about all the safety things, I'm going to ask the authorities, make special provisions, boost up your Labor Department, do whatever you have to do, reach out to the unions, do something so that these employment issues can be addressed. People do not need the extra stress. Stress makes your immunity go down.
Well, it's
and
not
a lot
only
of
that,
unanswered questions
it's
right
a
now.
dual crisis, and I think we here who are working perhaps feel more secure in just focusing on health, but we cannot neglect the population that is at home with no income, or half their income, or quarter of their income, and trying to figure out, how am I going to feed my kids?
Let me tell you, if I may suggest this. I'll suggest what I've done, and you don't have to do what I've done. I have adopted the persons that I will assist with food that I know need it. You know, it's people I already know. It's people that have come maybe around my place as casual workers. I already told them, you could come by my place anytime for food, and I will help you what I have. My view is, no matter how it gets, I will share until all of us don't have. That's my view. I'm not saying everybody have to do that, but I know there are some of us who have a little bit more. Please find out in your neighborhood. help someone, because yes, while we want the government to do its share, the truth is the government in many ways is overwhelmed. This is new to them. And we've never had a strong social services, which now we need. We've always had weak systems in our government for political reasons, I would outright say. And now the government is forced to do a lot of social service, and we have to give them time to try
and also beef up the healthcare system with very expensive equipment at the same time.
And I must applaud them on that, because that was one of the scary things. And I said to myself, imagine it took a virus for them to put basic things we need, because we neglected our healthcare system, but at least we have those things in now, you know.
Okay, let's get back to the state of emergency though before we quickly run out.
That's all part of the state of emergency, because people need to feel that sense of confidence, and people need to know that there are places to go for answer, and the employment issue is ravaging in the minds of people.
You back and we tackled this one directly.
Yes, I would love to deal with the employment issue on its own, but I wanted to mention some of it, and I want people to know that I'm doing my research too. I don't know everything, but you know, lawyers, we don't need to know everything. We just need to know where to go find it.
Right.
So we're promising you that we're going to, if you have employment questions, we're going to tackle that one at another time. What I want to be clear on is if somebody right now says, I forgot to buy milk, you know, for the baby. Just let's talk about, so 8 p.m. tonight to 5 a.m. Don't
go buy for milk.
Don't move unless you absolutely have to. And you know the difference between absolutely have to and not. This is life and death, and this is just collectively what we're all aiming to do. 5 a.m. to 8 p.m. There is some movement allowed. That's why your hardware, your supermarket, your vet, your clinics, all of these places are open. We can go out, but
your bakeries, your fishers, your agricultural and aquaculture farms, construction workers, port operation and waste disposal and sanitation.
Okay, so if I'm going to go out, there's no specific rule set as to what I have to show to prove, but I can be stopped and asked, and I will be expected to explain why I'm out.
Yes. Well, yesterday I called the commissioner of police, because when I'm not sure things, I called the authorities and I called him. And I said to him the circumstances for some of my clients that I was thinking about. One of the things he said is that at this point they're encouraging employers of these people that must be out at that hour to at least send a letter to your nearest police station with the names. Because at some point they want to be able to issue some kind of ID pass or something. But of course this is all new. So he's hoping that his police officers will exercise good discretion. And at the same time, if you're not sure, just write a letter, employer, send it to the nearest police station. If they
give the employee a copy.
And give the employee a copy. And if they're harassing them and they take them to the police station, they could always go to the record and see, oh, see, Marlene is there, channel 5.
Well, we are wearing our IDs as we move around as one step.
We don't have IDs for the court, though, Gavin.
No.
We just have to take it for granted that we are not lying.
Or
that
walk
we are
around in our robes, no?
I like that one. So, yes, that is the other time.
Or a letter from your employee. I know in Florida, some places, they give you a marker for your car that you work there. Just to alleviate the process.
All of that we have to develop yet.
That's if you work in one of the areas that you're allowed to move around, that your business is going to be open, that you're carrying out your work duties. But what if I'm not. I'm a teacher and I still need to run an errand. I need to go do something, buy my groceries, go to the ATM. How do I know when I can go and what I should be expected to be subjected to?
According to the regulations, that category of person can go out anytime between 8 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Okay.
It says it right here, and it says that's when you can access your pharmacies, A. B, convenience stores. I mean, that's very big. They shouldn't even have said convenience stores, because Jusco wants to stay open now. They say they allow convenience.
What's the classification for convenience versus grocery?
Well, I think it has more than groceries. You have maybe a little beauty care stuff, and so it's just, I always think about a convenience store. It's like a little mini department store in that I can go and find
a little bit of everything.
Yeah, a little bit of everything, right? So they're actually allowing that. And my personal opinion is that shouldn't have been allowed. It should have been supermarkets. But it says stores, food stores, supermarkets, meat shops, butchers, distributors, and factories of carbonated and other beverages, including spirits and food. I have a major problem with this. So let me break it down. I don't think convenience stores should be there. It should be specifically supermarkets. You could get food. At some supermarkets, you get some of these little conveniences, but it should be supermarkets and anything to do with food, like the butcher shops and stuff like that. I think so. I don't see how.
Does it say markets?
It says supermarkets. Markets is another category. Okay. I'll read that one. I don't see how, though, carbonated drinks are included, including spirits. Why? We just had the gentleman from the National Drug Abuse Council. I'm telling you that spirits, and by the way, people, spirits don't mean ghosts, right? It means alcoholic beverages. You should not be encouraging that.
And bars are closed.
And bars are closed, and casinos are closed. So the same way casinos should have been closed, Belize should have been closed. The same way bars and all those things are closed. It's closed for two reasons: for the social gathering, and because it has been proven, and the good gentleman was here, and all the doctors you all have spoken to are here. They're telling you drinking is the last thing you want to do. So the last thing you want to put in the legislation is allowing drinking. I mean, I saw an interview where the guy said he's Sutherland and well, he drink
rum will kill it. Yeah.
That is not good. That we need to dispel those myths because it only weakens your immune system.
But could it be an exportation issue that maybe it's to be exported?
Then if it's that, you need to be specific, because here it's telling you the places you can access between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m., which you can access, not those that can remain open to do some kind of exploitation. Okay. So that's too wide. And carbonated drinks, I'm sorry, I don't think it's the most healthy thing, and it's not an essential service. And this is where I believe that the huge businessmen bargain so that their business can continue. If Boeing, and I'll call them out because they're the one with carbonated drinks in this country, and they can't do me anything, sorry. You should be closed. You should be providing water. Water is an essential.
I was going to say they have water production.
I think you have to have a conscience, because the more you expose your employees with all those other things, you have to think about your truck with all your employees. Is the potential virus going around, or every stop they make is the potential virus attaching to them? I think that at this point, they shouldn't be doing deliveries all over the place. They should have agreements with every supermarket so that when I go to the supermarket, that's where I can get almost everything I want, water included. So I honestly believe, calling them out outright, that this is one of those sections that I see there had to be some negotiation to be included, and especially the spirits part too. That's so wrong. Why would we have beers right now and alcohol and all of that? You know, Travelers has done us a good service. They didn't go and make more rum. They made hand sanitizers using their products, and we need to applaud them and call them out for the good they've done. And to the general public, please limit your consumption of alcohol. We don't know how bad it would get, and I'm hoping for the best, but let's be prepared. Okay. So I have a problem with that one. Financial institutions, right? I do think that financial institutions need to be open, but they can do a lot of from home work. Yeah. A lot of their paperwork has to be from home. I'm asking those financial institutions, remember the 10 persons that should be able to be there in part of the quarantine legislation. I had a problem with the quarantine legislation because in one section it says only 10 persons, and it names the businesses that were closed, and in another section other businesses that can be open at their own discretion determine how many people can be there. This is where I'm seeing conflict in the law, and this is where you don't want to give the public that mixed signal. So financial institutions.
So this is the list of places that you can go between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m.
But just no people, no bank will be open till 7 p.m.
Yes.
You know, they're just putting it in that category.
They've already issued different hours that they'll be working with.
Yeah. And why I think that the financial institutions must be open, I would hope that the management would be conscionable and decide, okay, we don't want people in and out. So let's boost up our ATM service, let's boost up our online service, let's get customers, let's help them hook up online. We know some people don't have online service.
I was going to say, some people are very against online.
But you have to reach out to them. Why I want to highlight this one too, because it has credit unions, and I saw HRCU credit union line outrageously long. I know that's where a lot of the more low income people access their money. It's needed, but I'm going to ask that they figure out a different process. They have to put an announcement or something to figure out a way to help without that
well,
that
it doesn't say when you can go. That's what I find interesting with the legislation. In other countries, they've done different things. So some of them it's been based on your license plate, like even an odd number. Some places it's been based on the even and odd with your social security card or your last name
or your voter's ID.
The letter of your last name. In other words, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The first half of the alphabet can go out. So A to whatever letter that is.
We have to start thinking creatively.
And it kind of helps in terms of not having overcrowding in any area.
On financial institution, one of the big asks that I keep getting on my phone is, will Western Union and MoneyGram be open? The answer is yes. It says specifically here, money transfer institutions and pawn shops. Okay, let's stick a little pin there simply because the truth is, a lot of our people will be getting money from abroad. And we need to be able to allow them to get that. The problem I'm seeing that is like, for example, Korea Electronics offers that service, but the rest of the store can't be open. So how do you deal with that? So I would suggest that the headquarter of MoneyGram and the headquarter of Western Union meet with their agents or find out where all their agents are and post which places will be open. Because Korea Electronic would be in violation if they open their entire store because they're not a supermarket. But they wouldn't be in violation if they open that section that deals with money. And it may be that your agent, your headquarters might say, you know what, if you do not fall under one of the other categories, you'll be closed, but we will announce the ones that will be open, or we the headquarters, can be the one dealing with all the money transaction. I'm not telling them how to do it. I'm just telling them think what you can do. For example, I know at 88 Shopping Center, I think there's a Western Union, so they managed to meet 2 criteria. And the government can't go on in detail pick and tell everybody how to do. You have to have some common sense and figure out what you can or can't do. So that's discourse that has to be happening with those people. But for all those people who keep texting me, can I go to Western Union? Yes. Now the problem is, it's not listed as an essential thing you can go out for. And this is where the
But would it be the same thing I mean, because I won't say I'm going to go get money.
Yeah. So no, but my point is, it doesn't list it.
Okay.
I'm not saying don't go.
Yeah.
I am going to say to the police officer, if the person is saying, sir, I have to go get money, you can't pull it out and say, mom, it's not listed right here, right there, for necessities, whatever. Nothing say money.
Yeah.
Don't do that, officers. Have common
sense. There's a lot of discretionary power.
Because
I've been saying that since yesterday.
You can't be saying that these places can be open, but when you list it right here, what is determined as a reason to be out, one of the reasons to be out was not one of the things that correspond with a place that is open. But you can't say, sir, I'm going out because I'm going to go get a carbonated drink and spirits, and they'll say, but that wasn't listed as an essential service, and you say, but officer, they have it open.
Go and say, I'm going to go and buy some beers?
Right, because you left it open. You see why I'm seeing the contradiction, and a lot of our common sense people will
But that's the thing, and I think that's why, as much as we say these things, we must always say it with the caveat that we are not to be moving. It's like if you're going to go out, do one swoop of everything and stay in your house after that. This is not an opportunity to find your outing every day or something along those lines, because then we're defeating the purpose for what this is established.
Listen to this one that goes contrary to what the purpose you just mentioned. How can you tell me that hotels, villas, and other rental accommodations are open? Hotel, villas, it doesn't make sense. It does not come under an essential
Well, the
service.
hotels I know are being used for mandatory quarantine.
Well, then you don't have to put that there because it's government control. Once it's quarantine, government under the power of the state of emergency has to have some control over it, because it means that then they have to monitor who is there or not. And then it means that if that's your quarantine center, that's the last place you want anyone needing accommodation that is not infected to go. So it's not making sense to me. And I'm not trying to be overcritical. I just want them to think it through and make tweaks where they need to. They don't have to know everything. Us, the public, should have a voice and say, you know, authorities X, Y, and Z, and let them think it out. It's just giving them ideas. Then it says here markets, agricultural produce, fish, and meat. That's an essential, I believe. And if I could suggest to that's why I want to hear that our municipalities are essential service. If I can suggest to the mayor that one of the things we can do, since we need social distancing, go to the market, at least for Belize City. I'm not saying all the other markets because I don't. Go to the market. We have 2 streets wide. Go and set up within, and you tell them, look, these are going to be your opening hours. The public, this is the opening hours. This is how we'll come there. And create stalls all along. From you hit Pongyard Bridge, all along have those people out there, so you can do a drive-through or walk-through. That's mean. Nobody has to be coming out and having contact. And it must be that every vendor has something to wipe their hands or give you to wipe their hands.
And also proper spacing. I know the CEO of Agriculture said yesterday that they would shift how the market is set up. Markets are set up because they will be open
They should.
It is an essential service because we need our fruits and
Yes.
vegetables now more than
And
ever.
we want our agricultural sector to be selling so that the industry doesn't collapse, right?
Okay, so we gotta keep it moving. Just so, and I think one of the things I was reading, they're still asking about domestic work, convenience stores attached to
domestic workers. I don't think that they are essential services.
laundromats.
They're not essential services, and
No, they're not. We had
either.
asked the commissioner yesterday.
And laundromats either. It's like people, you have to understand, if you're locked in, you have to now become self-contained and figure out how I'll wash my clothes, how I'll hang it out. I mean, I hate going to hang out clothes too, but you have to do it. That's the idea.
It's only for 1 month.
Remember, the whole concept is to limit your movement.
Yeah.
I mean, suddenly I find myself in my kitchen baking almost every day. I forgot I could bake. That's how bored we get, you know?
And you said it. You said it right. It is not permanent. It's just a short term.
Yes.
And we're going to be out of our comfort zones, and it will require us to take on additional things that we never used to before.
And
but
for
it's
that
for the greater
category
good.
you're talking about that can be out 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., we have service of takeout or drive-through facility only at restaurants, saloons, diners, and other similar establishments. Those are for the people who have been asking me about street vending.
But it says
Other similar establishments need to be read along with what is a restaurant, a diner, a saloon. You know, you have to be, it doesn't mean a street side vending. So if you could creatively come up with your backyard diner, remember people can't come and sit there either. It's takeout. But if you can create a takeout service. Now what I'm worried about takeout or delivery service is that
does it say delivery or only takeout and pick up?
No, it says right here, service of takeout or drive-through facility at restaurants, salons, diners, and similar establishments. But remember, it also incorporated the quarantine legislation that says delivery. So if you know you have your delivery guys, please make sure you get the ID or letter, whatever, so the police know this is my delivery guy, and he's out taking food. And I'm encouraging you, let your delivery guy dress properly, have the sanitation products. When they deliver stuff to you, remember, the virus stays on plastic for, I think they said 12 hours. I've seen some say 8 hours, some say 3 hours. It doesn't matter. If it stays with it only 1 hour, take those plastic, throw it away, wipe your hand, do whatever. I mean, you can't sanitize everything, but you can take measures, do that. You know, so that's good. Then the international delivery service, FedEx and DHL and all of that, they said only strictly to medical supplies and equipment. So I don't think their offices need to be open. Those are direct contacts that you know the ministry will be calling you, and that's what you use. That's my suggestion. Domestic delivery services related strictly to meals, groceries, medical supplies, and equipment, that's your delivery people. Mechanic shops, garages, and auto parts stores. I just think that should not have fit there. I'm sorry. Because if you're not moving around and all of that, you don't even have the need for that. I think that's a category that should not have. But if things get worse, that's one of the group that will have to
But this is where we're starting from. So moving forward, I think they're
hardware stores. Please make answer hardware stores. Suddenly everybody became a hardware store.
Well, I think what everywhere is a hardware store.
So everybody want fit. I laugh when people calling me, but Miss Audrey, we sell nails. I said, but is that what you essentially sell? You sell other things. You're not a hardware store. But because we said
I didn't think of
construction,
it that way.
if we said construction is going on, we need the hardware. So my suggestion into the hardware people, you're exposing your employees again. I know it says you could be open till 7 p.m. My suggestion, open, if construction people know what they need, open from 9 to midday, and if those construction people don't get that stuff that day from 9 to midday, tomorrow you come for the rest. We have to discipline ourselves.
Yes.
It can't stay open all day. That's my suggestion. But just remember, you as the owner of the establishment, you're exposing yourself to. And at some point, no matter how much money you make, when you're sick, the money means nothing. So think about, yes, that's the wide area they gave me, but this is how I can narrate. And you know who are your usual contractors who come in. Contact them. Send out message, send out text. Limit.
All right. So we gotta round it off now. What are some of the important points? So we got 30 days. We hear two things. One, it could be extended, or it actually could be shortened.
Yes.
Yeah. And where do those powers come from?
Well, under the Constitution, the Governor General, in this case, rightfully declared a state of emergency. Under a state of emergency, the government can make any rules. This is the rules they've made. They can tighten these rules, they can loosen these rules. The extreme would be where everything else stops, except food, specific food places that they will classify for each area, and pharmacy. That's the extreme. We're not at the extreme, we're at very lax end, because the mere fact that hardware stores can be open and carbonated drinks and spirit drinks can be circulating, that tells you we are very lax. I still say it's a good start. Let's see how things go, and if they need to tighten it, people be prepared that it's tightening. One businessman told me, says, you know what's not fair? I closed down my business over 2 weeks ago because I saw the risk, and now I knew that I wasn't an essential service. I sell clothes and stuff like that. I did that. Now there is a state of emergency, so I have to add to those 2 weeks, 30 days. I'm doing my part. I'm trying to still pay my employees and everything. It's unfair that I took that sacrifice, and then other businesses, such as the drinks people and the hardwares that are really not essential, because of their greed, they want to stay in, and they stay 30 days. So they're just taking the risk 30 days, and they're causing more circulation. If there more circulation creates a crisis and we have to add another 30 days, it's not fair that because of them, my 2 weeks, which has expanded to 30 days, will be longer, because they managed to make some money during that time, but that circulation created a longer period. I could see what they're saying. I won't pass any judgment. I'll simply say, not because it says that you can open, just open. Think, what was the premise? The premise is to limit contact, limit movement.
What are the risks involved for your employees?
And your employees. I know places where the employees go tell the boss outright, sir, mom, I will take it without pay. I have an elderly person at home. They need me, and this is how we're going to manage.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, that we're gonna touch the labor issues on another date.
Yes.
We skimmed through the state of emergency, Audrey,
yeah,
but
because
we are
halfway.
out at time.
I know we're out of time.
But there's a lot more time to talk about
it's
this.
Just Stephanie
we
didn't think that that I could have explained so much more, you know. So
we got a month worth of information, and I think that we haven't touched penalties as yet, but we're going to get to that one at a different date. Thank you for coming in and at least doing the preliminary information with us.
You're welcome.
We
anytime.
do appreciate it.